So we're really excited to dive in as we present the first look of our modular cyber labs. Today we have Anthony Agueda, our founder and CEO of Apporto, Daniel Hutchinson, manager of Linux engineering, and Heather Waserlin, our VP of product. We'll take a look at the overview and architecture of the product. The demo will show the exciting feature of the drag and drop. We will then have our Q&A session, so please don't be shy and let us know if you have any questions on the chat as well. We're always curious to hear from you about your experiences and plans, so we will have a few quick polls sprinkled throughout the webinar. Thank you, everyone, and without further ado, Anthony, our CEO and founder, will start.
Thank you. So the reason we have launched this product is because it was the conversions of three items. The first one is that clearly there is a very strong shortage of cybersecurity experts around the world, around the United States. In fact, according to Fortune magazine, the number of unfilled cybersecurity jobs grew by 350%. From 1 million, there's 3.5 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs around the world. That's a very large number. In the United States, there is a shortage of 1 million cybersecurity workers. And in fact, in California, there is a shortage of about 100 cybersecurity experts, to the point that the governor of the state of California has initiated a program and is providing grants to the CSU system, to the California State University system, to start a cybersecurity program, cybersecurity certificates, cybersecurity courses. And what makes the challenge more difficult is that people have come to cybersecurity programs through computer science, through information technology, which makes the pipeline very, very narrow. So we're seeing a lot of institutions like Accenture that is looking to recruit cybersecurity experts from outside the traditional path of computer science and information technology. In fact, they're looking for folks coming from criminology or even from data science, all of which can be trained to become cybersecurity experts. Next slide, please.
Give me 1 second. We actually have a really quick poll that we would like to post.
Thank you.
So
yeah, go ahead, Connie.
Good. All right. So we want to know if your campus is adding a cybersecurity program. We're going to give it about another 5 seconds or so, and then we will show the polling results.
So we're trying to understand, if your campus is adding a cybersecurity program or adding a cybersecurity course or cybersecurity certificate. And if not, then just say no. We just want to share with you what's happening in this sample that we have right here.
All right, thank you, everyone. And here are the results that we have based on our attendees.
So 64% says yes, and 36% says no. That's a good sample. Thank you, Connie. Next slide, please. So the second reason why many universities are looking to the cloud to set up their cybersecurity infrastructure is that there is a very significant risk to a network, a campus network, if a cybersecurity program is set up on the campus network. As you can imagine, many faculty who are teaching cybersecurity want to give their students hands-on training with malware, with ransomware, with viruses, with keyloggers. And obviously, most networks have technology to block this malware. So that becomes a problem. Should they stop blocking this malware to enable the cybersecurity program? Or in fact, they have to ask their students and their faculty to sign an agreement as to how those viruses, this ransomware, can be used and cannot be used. Again, there's a lot of complexity associated with that. We've heard instances of ISP providers to universities who've complained that the universities seems to be having some signs of malware on their network, and therefore the ISPs threaten to block them. So there are a lot of issues associated with setting up a cybersecurity program, cybersecurity software on-prem, on the campus network, and most universities prefer to put it up off their network. Next slide, please. In fact, one of our customers, who happens to be a state university in California, gave us this case study that became a very interesting seminal case study for us to understand the problems that universities have and why we should be setting up this program. So the project was a capstone program, which means students have to complete this project to graduate from this program. And the project consisted of building web apps, databases, essentially setting up a mini environment to run a business, like a small business. And one of the key tasks was how to secure the network. So the IT department offered to help the faculty by setting up the environment in AWS, because otherwise they'd have to set up, a physical infrastructure. They'd have to set up PCs, maybe Macs, printers, whatever is needed to emulate an environment of a small business. And it took them 3 months to do that. By the time they were finished setting up the environment, the course was over. So it cost them a lot of time, a lot of money. In fact, even AWS flagged their activity as malicious because the students had installed some malware. They had installed some keyloggers to show how they could block those. So again, it points to the need for something that's much simpler to set up and much simpler to customize. Do we have another poll right now?
Not at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So I'm going to hand over now to Daniel Hutchison. Daniel is the manager of our Linux department.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to kind of go over the technology of our modular cyber labs before diving into a demo, kind of illustrating what we're prepared for you. Kind of the first thing to be aware of is that these cyber labs are delivered with Apporto's hyperstreaming technology. What that means to you, if you're familiar with Apporto, is you get all the great features of integrating with your LMS. Your single sign-on provides a simple app store to be able to launch things. But kind of going back to what makes us neat is that we kind of level the playing field for various students. We make it equitable so that everyone, no matter what device they're on, if it's a low-powered device, your Chromebook or old PC, or even the newer M1 Max that can't run virtualization locally, all of those devices can access these environments without having to install specialized software. It makes the support easier for you guys. And then kind of as Anthony noted already, one of the big concerns about setting up cyber ranges or cyber labs, especially on campus, is dealing with the fallout or misconfiguration issues that could happen and potentially cause issues. And so what we've done is we built these and kind of like a double layer inside of our environment. So we've got, a software-defined network that secures these labs. So everyone's got their own bubble essentially. But then inside each cyber lab that's assigned to a student, there's a separate network that's even inside of that. And so that's where the students will interact and work on things. One of the other features that we're using for this modular cyber lab is persistent VMs. So what that means is that your students can be assigned an instance. They don't have to know about what instance they're assigned. It's the same icon inside the App Store. Everyone in the class uses that same icon, but they're routed back to their instance. And I'll show a network diagram of this in the next slide. But what that means is as they're progressing through the course, if they need to take a break and maybe they've got to work on another class for a week, big assignment comes through and they come back the next week and they can basically pick up exactly where they left off. And so that's a really neat feature that you can use. So as far as our architecture goes, we're basing off a world-class network simulation software called GNS3, and we've extended it to work well with our hyperstreaming technology and the Apporto stack. But GNS3 offers quite a bit of features with both pre-built appliances that you can download and import, as well as one of the new features that they've got recently is being able to use both virtual instances, VMs, along with a Docker network in the same network layer. And so if you worked with these cyber ranges a lot, you know that running a lot of VMs is really resource intensive. Each OS needs quite a bit of memory just to run. And so if you've got a lot of targets that you want to simulate in your network, or if you want to set up a whole bunch of lamp stacks or different scenarios, you have the option of building those with Docker containers and reducing the resource requirement. And as you know, anything in the cloud, more resources usually equates to more money. And so the better we can keep this lean and green, the better our costs that will be passed on to you guys. And so finally, what we've, as we've been demoing this to various customers or potential customers, one of the big things we've found is that we see two different camps, and that kind of came out in the polls a little bit. But what we see is that there's some people that are spinning up their cyber labs. They've got a lot of experience building cyber labs. They know what they want and how to set it all up. And so they just want a blank field that they can just go out and just, provision everything, configure it the way they exactly want it. And we got other people that are just been given a mandate to say, okay, the cybersecurity is really hot right now. I need to just stand up a full course and start working on that. And so the second camp has come back to us and say, well, do you have any pre-baked labs or even content that we can start using as a basis for these courses? And so we started to build those out, and we're going to show off two in our demo here. We've got a Net Plus and a Security Plus complete scenario with labs and kind of content to guide the students through how to use that. But it's kind of design your own and pick the solution that you want. So let's go to the next slide and look at the network topology a little bit.
Thank you. We're going to take this moment
to
take a quick poll. So the question is, when building a cybersecurity program, how would your faculty like to build their solutions?
Yeah, so the idea here is we're trying to understand whether faculty have a preference to build a cyber lab from scratch based on their own designs, or would they have a preference to start with a template, and they have the option to modify the template. And we're going to show you how we do that in the Apporto environment, but we're trying to understand what is the preference that you're seeing out there on your campuses.
All right, thank you, everyone. I am going to launch the results right now.
Wow. Okay, there's a very strong preference for starting with templates. That's very good to know. That's very insightful. Thank you.
All right, so this is just kind of a high-level overview of how our cybersecurity labs, and it's actually fairly common with all of our labs, actually, how it's delivered, but this is specific to our cybersecurity labs. Over on the left, you've got your end user device, and one of the great things about our service is they can be located on campus, they can be at home, they can be at work or wherever that is. As long as they have an HTML5 compatible browser, they can access this service through the portal, and they get authenticated through your single sign-on or your LMS. And so on this diagram, you see the green lines, that indicates HTML5. So that first layer is just HTML5 that's transmitting mouse events and mouse and keyboard events to the Hyperstream server. Hyperstream server connects that user back to their assigned RDP instance. We have a base machine that can be imaged, modified. So as a faculty, you come in, modify that base image, then we can replicate that to the rest of the farms. So it makes it flexible for you to update any labs or anything that you've got there. You want your users to start from that baseline. But as you can see, each of these labs are in their own protective bubble, their own isolated security zone, and it makes it really easy. And then, like I said before, inside of each RDP instance, we'll have an actual virtual network that the actual lab will run inside of. So let's go to the next slide. All right, demo time. Let me share my screen here. Okay, so this is just, I'm just going to start from the App Store. This is the view that your students will see if you're not familiar with Apporto. After they log in through single sign-on or the LMS, they'll see this App Store, the apps that they've been assigned through whatever group memberships you define. So you can say the Modular Cyber Lab belongs to, Cybersecurity 101. Those people that have that class and log in, they will see this icon. Those that don't won't. And so I pre-launched this lab so we don't have to sit around and wait for it. But anyway, so when they log in, this is the interface they see. They launch the GNS3. They can load whatever scenario they've got. I've preloaded here the Security Plus scenario and launched the machine, so we don't have to sit around and wait for them. But each of our labs, so we've got we've got Net Plus and Security Plus labs, and then a whole bunch of labs that are designed for the students to walk through and do scenarios. And so to start off with, there's a lab 00, essentially just if they're not familiar with our modular cyber lab, it just kind of walks them through the basics, how to launch it, how to interact with the UI, and so forth. But I just wanted to kind of walk through. This is just the first lesson. I won't do all of the tasks here, but we just wanted to kind of show what the students would see, give you that kind of experience, what that student would see as they go through. And so you see here, I've got the Kali Linux system launched already. One of the things that this lab has the students do is walk through, figure out where they are on the network. Then they, have them probe the network to see what devices there are. They use a passive scan, then an active scan, and then finally they start. It teaches them how to start looking for versions on the network. And so I've got Wireshark running in the background, so you can kind of see see something while things are going around. Students log in, they see, okay, I'm on the 192.168.1 network. Let's go ahead and do a net discover here. And this is just kind of like a passive scan, and it kind of shows people how to do this in the lab. So let's see. So here you see, as the ARP requests happen in the background, they start showing up. Net Discover kind of gives them that availability, so students can start to see, hey, these are what are on the network. The lab then has the students walk through, kind of doing maybe some top ports scan to just kind of see what's actually listening on the network on the various top 10 ports out here. You see the scan running in the background there. And it kind of shows what's open on the network. And then finally, they've got, how to check for, different versions on things like that. So, the lab starts with this machine that says, notice it's got a web server running, it's open, let's see what's out there. So you can go ahead and start looking at that and see what banner it's reporting as, and obviously this comes back as a Microsoft web server. They can check the topology and see, oh yeah, this is our DC1, so there's a web server running on this DC1 server. So that's, that's just kind of, how they can walk through. This is the experience they see. You can see that the performance is really nice. Again, it works really fast in here. They've got the guides, and you can take these guides and modify them, or create your own. Then it's one of the other nice things that we've got here is that you can actually switch between these networks rather quickly. Different scenarios if you want to play around here. Looks like I've got what I was going to demo here already here. So let me clean that up. Sorry about that. So right here, what we've got is the Net Plus network. And what I was going to show off here that I'm cleaning up is how easy it is to modify your network. So so if you're a faculty, you come in here and you say, you know what, this is great. But over here on the Soho LAN, I actually want the students to learn how to interact with a file server. So I want a file server on the right, on the Soho network. And then on the left, I want to start adding some Docker images to kind of investigate things. So it's really easy. You just pull out from your device template, you can drag it out onto your screen here and change the name to our file server. And then just wire it up, selecting available ports indicated by the red. And we can just pick any of the unused ports and then start it up and start configuring that machine. So this is another one that I like to show off. That's kind of nice, especially if you're dealing with pfSense. This is actually a Docker container that just contains Firefox as well as some command line utilities, so you can kind of scan the network to see what's out there, as well as if you're ever using pfSense, you kind of need a web browser to kind of configure that. So it's really easy to drop this in place without having to build out a full VM in whatever network. So we can just connect to that, and you can start interacting with the web browser or terminal or whatever you'd like. So, as you can see, it's really easy to add and modify these designs. Some faculty want their students to actually almost have like an administrative style experience, and so you can have them with instructions on how to build out a lab from scratch, or if you as a faculty want to get them to a baseline, you can build out the lab, snapshot it as our golden image, and then replicate that to the farm, and then they can kind of configure that as they go. So then just kind of lastly, I just wanted to show, if you wanted to create a brand new scenario here, let's call it home network. We want to just kind of quickly simulate a home network, what that would look like. We can just create a brand new scenario, then do it the same way. We can drag out the internet represented by the NAT device. Let's say we want to use pfSense as our firewall. Simulate a wireless network or a switch network. And then finally, we'll just add our Windows server here. And then it really just becomes easy as wiring up the unused ports to set up the topology. We want the first interface to be with pfSense. You want that to be for your outbound internet. Second one's typically your DMZ or your private network. And then, the switch really doesn't matter. Just connect it up however you want. So then we can just boot these up and start configuring them. So that's really kind of the basis. It makes it really easy for you to modify these. You can add to these devices, this device template area here, if you want different devices. We had some CentOS already, Cisco, different people have asked for different things, and so we've kind of built out a little bit here, but you're free to add your own or import from the GNS3 main site as well. So
hey Daniel, a common issue we used to run into when we built those before this technology is the amount of RAM and the amount of CPU that may be needed to, to run a simulation over a complex network. How does that compare with the environment that we're looking at here?
So, it's similar, but if you can leverage your Docker containers, one of the nice things with Docker, like I said, is you don't have to have that base OS running. It can, you only pay for the actual memory that the application uses. So if you've got like a web server or something else that you want to simulate on your network, you only pay the memory and CPU utilization just for that process. And
so when you added the Firefox browser, we just needed the memory needed for the browser and not for the underlying operating system.
Yeah, exactly. And so
that's a huge win, right?
And there are some, like there are new Docker containers out here that can simulate different desktops as well, and so that's something you can play with. And Docker is really amazing in what you can do with it. So you can build out really advanced containers that are almost like full OSs. But yeah, it's a much easier way to simulate a device, or much lower resources. So yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so that's pretty much the demos I've done. So we can switch back to the slides if you're ready.
All right, Daniel, we actually have a question from the chat. Is this a single RDP session via web portal and then VNC to the various Docker container operating systems?
Correct, yeah. And so if you remember the network diagram before, so this is my Chrome browser. So I'm sitting on my laptop at home. I've got a Chrome browser. I connect it to my Hyperstream layer. The Hyperstream layer connects to this RDP server. So this is a Linux hypervisor base image here. I've got running Ubuntu that's loaded GNS3 on it, or our modular cyber lab on it. And inside this modular cyber lab are actual KVM instances and these Docker images. I think I have to start this up first. But yeah, you're right. So this is just a VNC connector into the Windows 10 server. And so that's same with the Docker instance here. You can see the graphic interface is done with VNC, but if you're using a Cisco device, it can use just like a shell session. It doesn't have to go through a VNC to connect to actually, I think pfSense shows that, yeah. So I guess this is using VNC as well, but it's essentially a text-based session. So does that answer your questions?
And then we do have one more follow-up question. Are these Docker containers running on the student's VM or a separate container host?
No, these are actually running on their actual VM. So we can, we should be able to even see this here. Yeah, so you can see I've got a web term that's running, and that's this one right here. So yeah, it's inside this thing. And the cool thing is like I said before, they actually integrated the network topology. So this Docker network is actually seamlessly integrated into the KVM. So these two instances, the Windows 10 and the pfSense, one's a BSD kernel and one's a Windows kernel, so they can't run as Docker containers in this scenario. But excuse me. So they're on a KVM network, and the web terminal is on a Docker network, and our modular cyber lab meshes those together so that they can actually interact with each other. So that's a good question.
Perfect. Thank you, Daniel. All right, so I'm going to switch back to our slides. Right, and then right before we go, we do have our last poll. If interested in cybersecurity templates, what labs or areas would you be interested in us covering?
So the choices are, so what Daniel showed you, or what Daniel has already set up, is Network Plus and Security Plus. And we want to kind of gain an understanding of what other areas, what other templates you may be interested in, or your university may be interested in. The ones we're listing here are probably the most common. So ethical hacking, digital forensics, pen test, cybersecurity analyst, or other.
Yeah, and feel free to select as many as you're interested in. So
thank you, Daniel. Okay, Connie, I think we got tired of the minions now.
Okay.
Dark web. Okay, somebody mentioned dark web. That's an interesting one. Do you want to show the results, Connie?
Here are our results.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, hi, Sama. We don't have it yet, but this is something we could put relatively quickly together. Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. So again, for those people who are not familiar with the Apporto service, just want to summarize what our service entails. So as you've seen, a student has access to a virtual desktop over the cloud. Your IT department or your faculty have access to a very simple admin console. And next, what we have is a bunch of services that we deliver to you. For instance, we set up the infrastructure. We make sure that the cost is always optimized at all times. We deliver, obviously, support to you, to your students, to your end users. There's always some problem coming up, even with cloud infrastructure. So we do troubleshooting. We take care of backup, recovery, monitoring, and alerting. And obviously, we run our infrastructure on Azure, on AWS, and in some customers' cases, we run that infrastructure on customers' existing on-prem infrastructure. And with that, Heather wanted to show how a faculty could create an image and deploy an image to his students. So essentially, after a faculty would have set up a virtual desktop or started with a template that meets his requirement, he has obviously the option to very simply deploy that image to all of his students. Heather, on to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Anthony. All right, let me share my screen here. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger since this is kind of small data. So I don't know in the audience if we have more, folks who are on the administrative side or also maybe some faculty. But the screen that I'm sharing could be used by either an IT admin or a faculty member. Basically, what we do is we share a list of all of what we call persistent virtual machines. These are essentially named or dedicated machines where the student can go in and do what Daniel just showed you. So here I've got a list for the Modular Cyber Lab. I see some basic information about the state, like maybe the server is stopped or it's up and running. I can also see who is assigned to that particular VM. If I wanted to, maybe a student dropped the course, I could remove that association and it would free up that machine for the next user who logs in. From the student perspective, it's, as simple as maybe logging in through their SSO. They would see if the Modular Lab is published to them, they could just launch it. As soon as they launch that, the next available VM would be assigned to them. And then during the class, it's likely that they're going to completely make a mess of that machine. They're going to download malware, they're going to, forge attacks and whatnot. So by the end of the class, it's probably going to be a mess. And in which case, the faculty or the admin would want to come in and perhaps re-image all those machines. And they can do that in bulk by selecting all the relevant machines and just hitting a button to do that update. Additionally, the faculty, if they wanted to make a change to the underlying image, we've identified which machine is the base or golden image. Faculty could go in, they could start that server, launch it, install whatever they need, drag and drop, where they need changes, and then do a backup, restore it, and push the image out to the other VMs. And trying to think if there's anything else. One thing maybe also worth mentioning, Apporto we are a full service, we can set this up for you so that it's ready to go on day one. But some of our customers prefer to manage everything in-house. And that's why we provide this administrative portal. So you can manage things, you can either outsource it to us or you can manage it in-house. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
There looks like there's a request to see if you can hit Control-U to show them more information on this particular Apporto screen.
Okay, Control-U. I'm going to give that a try. Not sure. So I'm on a Mac and I'm not sure if I've got the, let me see, I'm trying the Command-U. I apologize.
How about we get back to Thomas in a separate thread, since obviously you having a Mac, I don't think you're going to get the expected results.
Okay.
Thomas will get back to you via email. Thank you for asking all these good questions. Tammy, do we need to go back to the presentation? Is there more slides or more polls?
No, so we're actually going to open our Q&A and see if anyone have any questions for us.
Great. So Thomas, you've kept us on our toes throughout this presentation. Do you have any more questions, or anyone for that matter?
Okay, and just a friendly reminder, we will be sharing the recording of this. Just want to monitor the chat again and see if we have. Okay, so can multiple students join the same VM?
So we have two options for that. There's actually what we call the virtual classroom that your teachers, faculty can view and connect to those VMs and help students out. But there's also a way that students can share their desktop with someone else if they need to collaborate or something like that. But it wouldn't be, I mean, unless you wanted to, it would just be more of like a collaboration, or it's like, hey, I'm having a problem. They can connect, share the screen, let the other student that connected have full control or just read only. And there's even a view and a draw method that they can draw on the screen that they can kind of collaborate with. So there are some collaboration tools that are in there. We did add it to the demo here.
Yeah. So one of the key features that Daniel alluded to is the virtual classroom. And what is really neat about the virtual classroom, think of how sometimes a faculty may say to the students, we're going to have a lab hour today, and you guys can work on your assignments, and I'll walk around, and if you have any questions, you can ask me questions. We simulate that environment inside the browser. So even if the student is in the lab or if the student is remote, a faculty can see the virtual desktops of all of his students in one screen in real time. And if somebody raises their hand, he can, have a one-on-one conversation with that student, assume control over their screen, and help them out. Very, very powerful tool. We did not show you this one on this session, but that's a plug for another webinar that we're planning. And, we hope that you can join that webinar.
And we have another question. Is there any grading system for the labs?
I presume your question is there like some auto grader for the labs? Is that the question?
Let's see. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we don't have an auto grader. We've been looking in that direction, but right now we don't have that.
Okay. Looks like that concludes our questions. I just want to take this time to thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. Please, again, do not hesitate to reach out with any other questions. We'll be happy to help. Thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend.